Hi, welcome to another video. This is for biology. This is the first video in the series for photosynthesis. So to get started on this discussion, we're going to start where it all begins, and that's the sun. Okay, so what you see here in the sun, you have rays of light coming out of the sun. I know in this diagram here, it's pretty close, but it's actually about 92, 93 million miles apart. And it takes about 6 to 8 minutes for a beam of light to reach planet Earth. And once that beam of light hits Earth, something very interesting happens. But to understand what happens on Earth, why the sun is so important on Earth, we're going to take a closer look at a beam of sun. Okay, so we're zooming in, and we see here that the sun, or the light that comes out of the sun, we described it in class as being energy, a wave of energy, radiation, and that's the wave function of it. Okay, so we discussed also that light has kind of a dual property to it, that not only does it behave like a wave, but it also behaves like matter itself. And in fact, it is matter. Okay, and those little particles of energy, that particle of light, okay, is called a photon, and I've illustrated that by using these little stars. So we're going to highlight these stars, and we're going to get a closer look at these photons, if you will. Now, to understand a photon, we're going to discuss two discoveries that were made by two genius scientists, two of my favorite, Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein. So let's go ahead and begin with Newton. Now, Newton was home. Think back to the last time you had a break, which isn't that long ago. Newton was home from not a winter break per se, but he was home from a break because his school closed down because of the plague. Okay, so he was home and his house was kind of all closed in and wrapped, and he had sheets around it, and they're painted in the windows. And through a tiny sliver that was not covered, a light beam shone through his window, and he noticed that when the light beam shone through, that he saw a rainbow. And he noticed that light had actually different colors. It wasn't just the clear, transparent, um, uh, you know, light that you see, but it actually had something to it. So he made an experiment with a prism where he had pure light, which I have here represented by a clear, or the arrow that's got the gray borderline. So pure light, when it would go through a prism, the prism would bend light. It bends it and it exposes what pure light is made out of. And pure light, as it turns out, is a full spectrum, the full colors that you see in a rainbow. The same phenomenon happens uh, when sunlight hits rain droplets in the air, and those droplets bend the light, and it exposes the true color of light, and it makes a rainbow in the sky. Okay, so you see the same thing with the prism there. Okay, so again, keep in mind that these photons are the same thing, or this pure light is the same thing as photons. And Albert Einstein actually helped to discover this particular connection. So again, just to recap real quick, Isaac Newton discovered the fact that light, pure light, has a portfolio of colors to it. It's not just transparent and clear. And then Albert Einstein made the connection of pure light, its wave function, to actually it being a particle itself. Okay, so and he called these particles photons. Okay, and these photons are tiny little packages of energy. Okay, so you pictured earlier before the pure light hitting the prism. Well, it's the same thing. When these photons hit the prism, okay, they expose different wavelengths. Okay, so these different colors that you see are actually technically wavelengths of energy. Okay, and we'll explore what this actually, why this is important in photosynthesis. Okay, so again, photons reveal the spectrum. Okay, the photons have different wavelengths that reveal different colors, and these different colors, when you put them all together, you package them into pure light, and that's the transparent light that we see every day coming from the sun. Okay, so just like you pictured radiation waves of sun, waves of light hitting the earth, it's the same thing with photons. Okay, these are highly packed energy waves that hit the earth. And when these photons hit the earth, what's there to absorb it? But green plants, yes. And that's actually what we're going to be talking about for these next few weeks. is how this pure light, these photons and these wavelengths, all this bunched up together, okay, when they come in and they come into contact with the plant, something very interesting, a process that we call photosynthesis occurs. Okay, so this is the very beginning idea of photosynthesis. Photo referring to the photons, the sunlight; synthesis referring to the fact that the plant will absorb this energy and transform it, or repackage, store that energy into what we call glucose sugar, which is the actual plant that you see. Okay? All right. So we'll be back with the next video.